Welcome to my March 8th creating photos and video. Rather than selling a camera or two recently and purchasing a now 2-year-old Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II, I own the Mark I, I decided instead to purchase the new Olympus 12 to 200 millimeter lens. I thought that reach would be really, and that broad focal length would be great and would be something that would allow me to take perhaps just one lens when I travel. So I began doing some research, looking at the available lenses in that kind of category, including those from Panasonic, because Panasonic Micro Four Thirds lenses will work on Olympus Micro Four Thirds cameras and vice versa. So in doing that research, I discovered the Panasonic, now maybe 2.5-year-old Panasonic 14-140 millimeter lens. That's a 35 millimeter equivalent focal range of 14, so I double it, 28 millimeter to 280 millimeter. Now granted, it's shorter than the 400 millimeter I would get with the Olympus, the new Olympus lens, but I figured that's still pretty nice because mostly when I travel, I rarely take off my 12 to 40 millimeter Olympus lens. The Panasonic lens has a lot of things going for it. Number one, it's smaller and it's lighter than the Olympus lens is. The Olympus lens, I think, is almost a pound, and the Panasonic lens is quite a lot less than that. I'll put on the screen what the weight of it is, but it's much less than a pound. The other thing is, I recently purchased the Panasonic GX85, which does have image stabilization in it, but this lens, this 14-140 millimeter lens from Panasonic, also is stabilized. So I can use, and they will work together when I use the two Panasonic products together. If I use the Panasonic lens 14-140 on my Olympus camera, which is also stabilized, has 5-axis stabilization, the EM5 Mark II, it doesn't like add up. It's not cumulative. And so you use one or the other, really. I guess you can tell, I bought the Panasonic lens, and I ended up saving really about $400, and I did lose some focal length range, that's for sure. But it is still, I got it, I've had it a couple weeks now, I've been using it, and it really is nice. And I really can see myself going off on a trip with just this lens. So here it is mounted on my GX85, and it does come with a lens hood, which is nice. I'll take that off. And as you can see, it's not terribly big. This is the equivalent of 28 to 280 millimeters in reach, which really is pretty nice. I was taking some photos this week a couple times of our granddaughter who plays lacrosse, and they were at the far end of the field, and we were kind of a third of the way to the other end, from the other end of the field, and I was able to get close-ups almost of the girls right around the goal. This is the Panasonic 35 to 100 lens that I've been using, and you can see it's nice and tiny. So the 14 to 140 is larger, but it's a lot smaller than the Olympus equivalent. You can see the equivalent height, and it's light. So they're actually almost about the same weight. It's amazing. I see maybe 3 scenarios of how I might use this lens in my two cameras. I can see taking the GX85 and this lens all by themselves. This is all I take, and I think I could live with that because I've got the range that I've always had. So I've got the 14 to 40 that I covered that I have with my Olympus lens, my Pro lens, and I've got extra reach all the way up to 140 millimeters times 2, so 280 millimeters. And this is not a weather sealed lens, whereas my Pro lens is, as is the EM5. So that's if I was going to, say, Scotland, or I'm going to Ireland, or in some place where you usually encounter rain, I might choose to take the Pro lens and the EM5. The second scenario is where I would take both cameras and put the Pro Olympus lens on the EM5, so I've got a complete water sealed package, and take the Panasonic lens and camera as a second lens. Now, I don't lose any equipment in that respect as far as trying to save space in the bag, but it is a workable situation. Another scenario would be where I take the EM5, perhaps, because again, it's a weather-sealed camera, the 12-40, and this lens, and not take the GX85. That probably makes the most sense because I'm getting the advantage of having a pro lens that's water sealed together with a camera that's water sealed, so I've got a water sealed package in case it's a rainy environment that we're in. And I also have the ability to put on this lens and get a little bit extra reach. And the reason so the one logical question is, well, why would you do that except for the weather sealing feature? Why would you do that? Because you've already got all that focal length covered with this camera. So the reason I would do that, though, is the Olympus 12-40 is a maximum aperture opening of 2.8 across the whole focal length spectrum, whereas this Panasonic lens is f3.5 at the wide end, closing down to an f5.6 as you go through the focal range, somewhere around 100 or so. From 100 to 140, you're limited to the widest open aperture you can have is an f5.6, which is not bad. If you're outside and it's reasonably bright, that's not going to be an issue really. But that would be the reason for taking both those lenses. So I have something new to play with, and this whole package, again, the lens was used, it's a couple years old, it's 2.5 years old. The camera is 2 years old, and it too was used. So the whole package, which would normally, when brand new, cost way over $1,000 plus, ended up costing me $319 for the camera and $4 something for the lens. So $750 or so for this package. So that's my latest from creating photos and videos. Well, thank you very much for checking in on this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, I probably won't do one next Tuesday because I'm doing a presentation and I don't think I'm going to have time to put together a video. But I'll be back the end of next week. Goodbye.